was an action-packed sprint race, wasn't it, for the Miami Grand Prix? Well, it started even before the race got underway. Ocon hitting Charles Leclerc in the pits. He got a 10-second penalty before turning a corner on race day. It was a strange scenario that from Esteban Ocon. They got a bit of stucking on the clutch getting away, so that's what caused a bit of a delay, and he just effectively drove straight into a Ferrari despite his mechanic telling him to slow down. So bit annoying that from him. And also Valtteri Bottas, he got a 3-place grid penalty for the incident with Piastri we seen in qualifying yesterday, and the action started as soon as the race started, didn't it? Lance Stroll, Alonso, Lewis Hamilton and Norris all getting together in that tight first corner. No action was taken, which was the surprise really. I know a lot of people were saying, well, Alonso got that for hitting Sainz in racing, and how did Lewis or Stroll potentially get away with an incident there? Poor old Lando Norris, who, you know, I was excited to see what he'd be able to do in that McLaren charging through the field, was out in turn 1 through no fault of his own. He left plenty of room on the outside, was right on the outside of the track on the edge, and then just got a bit of a tap from the rear from Lance Stroll, who turned into Fernando Alonso, who again had nowhere to go from Lewis Hamilton. Now I've watched it back a few times, and the reason I think they've got given no penalty is because, well, especially to Lewis Hamilton anyway, because he was almost third on the scene. Alonso was close to Stroll. He didn't really have anywhere to go. Stroll turned into Alonso first before Hamilton then came and used him as a bit of a roadblock to slow him down, didn't he? And make the turn. So and Norris on the outside was just complete innocent bystander. So it was sort of Aston on Aston, a crime, wasn't it? Where Stroll hit Alonso, who probably was wary of Norris on the outside, and therefore, given it's turn 1 on a race, we know the stewards are a bit lenient on that, and I think that's why there was no penalty given. Overall, I think it was probably the right decision, and then that's why I think the Alonso decision is still wrong. That just doesn't make that right, just because this nothing was given her or whatever. So I think this was the right call. The Alonso's this penalty was the wrong call. I'll stand by that. But yeah, from there on we had Daniel Ricciardo, who got a great start up into P3. We then had the safety car. It was a great start from Daniel Rick up into the P3. The two Hasses though made the best start, didn't they? Up to P7 from Nico Hülkenberg, up 3 places, and Kevin Magnussen from down into P8 from P14, made up 6 places. Logan Sargent as well up into P12, so really good from him. The bad starters there was George Russell dropped 3 places and Ocon dropped 4 places, and obviously the Stroll Alonso Hamilton incident didn't help either. Hamilton made up 3 places up into P9. Alonso and Stroll DNF, Norris DNF unfortunately, and Alonso was just way down, wasn't he? Had a puncture. He must have had damage on that car because he was so far down. I mean, potentially he only got beaten, but he only beat Kevin Magnussen, who actually had 3 penalties, 2 10-second ones and a 5-second penalty for track limits. So yeah, a horrible day for the Aston guys. And then Sergio Perez finally made it past Daniel Ricciardo on lap 5, and you then thought Ricciardo would be under pressure from Carlos Sainz, but he did a fantastic job. Carlos Sainz just got stuck behind him. They were so good down the straight, the Red Bulls, and when you've got no strategy coming into place and it's just pure hard racing, you've got to do the business on track, and having a good fast car really proved its worth, like we've seen with the Haas team. Racing Bulls made it work, especially for Daniel Ricciardo. A fantastic P4 finish from him. And then we got the crazy battle with Kevin Magnussen, Lewis Hamilton. Magnussen fighting for P8 that last point. Probably went over the edge a little bit on the first defence that he did when he came back on track and bumped Lewis Hamilton out of the way. I think that was probably over the line, and that's from there on, when he got past and he knew he was going to get that penalty, he just played the team game, because once you get a 10-second penalty in this race, he knew there was no points to fight. He had his teammate up ahead of him and he did what he did in Jeddah. I liked his very honest interview at the end where he just said, you know, I don't like racing like this, I had to play the team game, and as dirty as it was, you give your hats off to it. I do kind of like that aggressive battling, but it probably wasn't for everyone's taste. And is there a way the stewards can combat it? That's the key thing, isn't it? Is there something that they can do where you see a driver is really doing this? The guy behind that's been hard done by the, the foul play really gets screwed over double, doesn't he? Because he's still stuck behind the guy that he's been given a penalty. He's got to see that penalty in a sprint. You're not going to get anything for it until the end of the race. And the guy that you're trying to chase up is, like this way in this terms of Nico Hülkenberg, got away, and Lewis Hamilton had no chance of doing that. Got sucker punched because Yuki Tsunoda, with a brilliant move, really opportunist, took Lewis Hamilton while he was battling Kevin Magnussen. And that just made it doubly worse from him. And then to top it off for Lewis, he got a drive-through penalty despite passing Yuki Tsunoda on the last lap to finally get that P8. But then, drive-through penalty, 20 seconds added to his race time. He finished in P16. And the action really was all with Magnussen and Hamilton and the train that Magnussen made there, didn't he, with everybody bunching everyone up to slow everyone down so Magnussen can get away. But that meant there was a real battle on from there to the back, and I think that's what made the race exciting. But other than that, it was not a track that was easy to pass, was it? Like, I don't think anybody really made, apart from Lewis, got a bulk on a racing bull, which actually, you think that should be a slam dunk easy maneuver. It wasn't so easy to pass. Even with DRS, they just seemed to struggle to follow through the fast corners, and when it came to the DRS, it just seemed to have too much to make up. Even with being really late on the brakes, it was massively difficult. We were seeing with Carlos Sainz as well, just couldn't get close to the racing bulls. In the race it'll be different because you've got strategy and they can make the pass with an overcut, undercut. In the pits they can make the difference there, but with just pure racing and going to wheel, without it being a strategy fight, which looks like that's what's going to make the difference in race day, there's not much else to do, was it? But let's get to the 3 good and the 3 bad. Well, I'm going to start with the 3 good, and the first of that is Daniel Ricciardo, a P4, to hold off Carlos Sainz in a much faster Ferrari, because we've seen what Charles Leclerc did with this brilliant second place for him. It was a fantastic job. For all the world, it looked like he'd be going back, getting swallowed up, and a point, P8, P7, P8 would probably the best he could hope for in the sprint. But to keep position was absolutely tremendous. It's the big kick that he needed for his season. A fantastic job from Daniel Ricciardo. The second of that is the 3 good. I'm going for Charles Leclerc, because I think a second solid P2, he was comfortably ahead of Sergio Perez, never really had to panic on, and to finish just 3 seconds behind Max Verstappen. If they can make the right setup changes and make it work better in the race, could we see a fight to Max? It looks very, very close, doesn't it? It doesn't look like one where Max would win 7-8 seconds, which we've seen him do in previous sprints. It was very closely fought, wasn't it? Fantastic job from Charles Leclerc. I think he'd be very, very happy with that. Beats a Red Bull and quite comfortably at that. And the third of that, I'm going to go for Yuki Tsunoda, although he was really disappointed in himself because he felt like he lost the battle with Lewis Hamilton getting that pass, but the penalty for Hamilton meant he got that point. And I think you've got to say he was one of the guys on the soft, everyone else was on the mediums, and to make it to the end with the tyres that he had, with the car that he had, I think he did a fantastic job. Brilliant points. It's a brilliant sprint race for the Racing Bulls team, isn't it? Double points finish for them. And let's get to the 3 bad. It was horrible for Mercedes. The first, I'm going for George Russell. He was P12, holding off Alex Albon. He just didn't seem to have any car underneath him at all, did he? It was so slow down the straights. Just couldn't really battle anyone, and he was more looking in his mirrors throughout that. So they've got a lot of work to do. They'll be so happy that they've got, another part Fermi. They can make changes into qualifying, and they'll be praying that actually it heads up in the right direction. And it doesn't look like it can get much worse. And it's a big qualifying coming up next for them, isn't it? So a lot of work to do, and that was disappointing how bad that Mercedes was, despite a new floor for them. The second of the two bad, I'm going to go for Kevin Magnussen, just because I think 3 penalties really scuffed from him. I know he was very honest in the interview to say, look, it was just a team game. I don't like to race like this. But he did it to help out his teammate. And Hulkenberg was a bit surprising. He just said, yeah, well, he's battling for P8 and he should have been, that's what you do for the team. Didn't really do it for him and didn't really sort of give Magnussen any credit for that, although surely he would have known that had Lewis got past Magnussen earlier, Hulkenberg would have had a job of his hands holding back Lewis Hamilton, but instead he had a comfortable P7 finish. So I think he was a bit harsh, Hulkenberg, on Magnussen there, because he did a really good job in the end, I suppose, for the team, Magnussen. But overall, you think he probably did go a little bit over the line, but I do kind of like to see that rough, tough battling. And is this the way to go for the smaller teams? I've said this once before, like in Jeddah, didn't I? Is Williams, if they can get a car right up there, do they need someone like a spoiler to play the game and help the other guys out? We know Aston Martin, Alonso sort of does that as well with Stroll, doesn't he? He's done that before. So, do more teams need to do that to guarantee some points and get something on the board? I think it's something for them to consider. And the third of the 3 bad, I'm going for an Aston Martin, because it couldn't have got worse for them. A DNF on turn 1, and Alonso was horribly off the pace. He must have damage. All the 3 or 4 guys in front of him all had penalties, at least of 10 seconds plus. And they still finished ahead of him. Magnussen, the only guy that finished behind him, and effectively had 25 seconds added to his time in a sprint race. It couldn't have gone any worse for the Aston Martin team this sprint race, and they'll be hoping that they can turn it around again like the Mercedes for these qualifying up next. But yeah, race winner Max Verstappen. Looked pretty solid once he got into the lead. Charles Leclerc finished second, and I think that was a very good race for him. Good points. Sergio Perez P3. I don't know what to expect from him. He had a really good Miami Grand Prix last time out, didn't he? But in the race, he just couldn't really get away from Daniel Ricciardo once he made the pass on him, and then. Yeah, didn't really make any impact on Charles Leclerc at all, did he? I'm not sure if he was carrying any issues or what his pace was, because I kind of thought they'd home in on that Ferrari a little bit, but it was really difficult for him. Daniel Ricciardo finishes 4th, fantastic for him, like I said. Carlos Sainz a P5. He'll be disappointed he was held behind a slower racing bull for so long. Oscar Piastri P6, and I think that's probably the best he could have done, because Carlos Sainz was in a DRS ahead of him and there was no options there. A brilliant, comfortable P7 for Hulkenberg, thanks to his teammate who held back both Yuki and Hamilton. A point for Yuki Tsunoda for his hard work and a brilliant run on the softs. Pierre Gasly finished that in 9th. Logan Sargent, I think that's his best race, isn't it? A P10, he really actually was fighting and moving forward for a change, and I should really give him a shout out for him, because he's made up 8 places in a race, and for him I'd be glad not to be fighting last, and it's kind of the big boost he kind of needed. Can he pull something off the bag in his home race in qualifying, and for the main race, who knows. Joan Yu finished in P11, wasn't really in any fights at all, was he? George Russell P12, he was holding back Alex Albon, who finished P13 behind him. The Williams got some work to do, haven't they? They need some upgrades to try and help them with that car. They have been on the back foot because of a horrible start to the season with big crashes, and that didn't really help them bridge the gap. They really need some upgrades to help them move forward. Bottas finished in P14. Ocon 15th. He obviously had the 10-second added to his time penalty before he even turned the wheel. Hamilton P16 at the end. With 20 seconds added to his time penalty, he was P8. Alonso P17. Yeah, it was last effectively until Magnussen rounded up the top finish, last of the finishers, and yeah, like I say, horrible with all them penalties in the end, and a DNF for Lance Stroll and Lando Norris of the Turn 1 incident, and that's the race result for the sprint. And up next, the qualifying. It shows it's going to be really important, actually, considering how hard it is to pass here, and let's see who can nick pole. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment as always. See you next time.